The conference room fell silent. 18 executive directors stared at Marcus Ashford, the man who'd built their billion-dollar empire from nothing. His 6'2" frame stood perfectly still at the head of the mahogany table, jaw set like carved stone, amber eyes cold as a Chicago winter. "You want to vote me out?" His voice was dangerously calm. "Go ahead, but first, you'll hear her out." The double doors crashed open. Kate Morrison walked in like a storm given human form, her blazer wrinkled from 3 days in the same clothes, auburn hair escaping its twist, green eyes burning with absolute conviction. She carried a file folder thick enough to be a weapon. "Hartman didn't just defraud the city," she said, her voice cutting through tension like a scalpel. "He bought 2 people in this room." The folder hit the table with a slap that echoed off floor-to-ceiling windows. Papers spilled out, bank statements, photographs, wire transfers, sworn affidavits. "Kate, you don't have to," Marcus started. "No," she cut him off, focus laser-locked on the board members who couldn't meet her eyes. "These people need to know exactly what they've been part of." She pulled out a photograph. "Mr. Harrison, having lunch with Gerald Hartman 3 weeks ago. 2 days after you voted against Marcus's Tungsten Affordable Housing Project. Hartman paid you $200,000 to sabotage that vote. The wire transfer went through a Nevada shell corporation, but I tracked it, all of it." Harrison's face went from red to white. Another photograph. "Ms. Chen, meeting with Hartman's attorney to discuss filing federal charges against Marcus. You received $150,000, also traceable." "2 of you," Kate said, voice dropping to something like pity. "Out of 18. Willing to destroy a good man's company for money." Marcus walked around the table until he stood beside Kate. Not in front of her, beside her. "Partners. You're fired," he told Harrison and Chen. "Both of you. Security will escort you out. You have 60 seconds before I call the federal prosecutor waiting outside." They left. Marcus turned to the remaining directors. "Anyone else want to confess?" Silence. "Good. Then let's talk about Gerald Hartman and why the woman standing next to me just committed professional suicide to save this company and expose the truth." Marcus Ashford had been at his desk since 4 a.m., late by his standards. 3 monitors displayed his world, financial reports showing peak efficiency, news feeds tracking every development, and hidden behind encryption, something else entirely. Building schematics he pretended not to design anymore, architectural renderings of affordable housing projects, community centers and mixed-income developments. All the dreams he'd had at 19, when he was stupid enough to think good intentions could change the world. His phone rang. "Richardson, your deal is dying." Not a greeting, a warning. "Tell Shaw he has 12 hours to accept $280 million, or I buy directly from his board. I've already spoken to 4 of them." He ended the call. Problem solved. Next problem. Brendan Sullivan entered without knocking, CFO and closest friend since Northwestern's Kellogg School. They'd weathered 2008 together, built Ashford Development from risky startup to empire. "The Chicago Tribune is running a series on corporate fraud in real estate," Brendan said, Boston accent sharp with worry. "They're sending Kate Morrison." Marcus looked up fully. "Morrison?" "She took down 3 CEOs last year. Morrison Construction's safety violations." Brendan paused. "That was her father who died when they cut corners on scaffolding." The silence was heavy. A journalist with a personal vendetta against the real estate industry, now investigating Marcus. Marcus leaned back, fingers steepled, his thinking pose. Set up the interview, full cooperation, open books, complete transparency. "She's not looking for truth, Marcus. She's looking for blood." "I'm not Morrison Construction, Brendan. We don't cut corners. We don't sacrifice safety for profit. If Kate Morrison investigates us, she'll find exactly that." Marcus smiled without warmth. "Set up the interview. Let's see how good she really is." 19-year-old Marcus stood before the senior partner's oak desk, His portfolio of low-income housing designs spread like prayers to an indifferent God. "Beautiful work, Ashford," the partner said. Marcus's heart leaped for 3 seconds before reality crashed. "Really beautiful. But the profit margin is what, 4%? 4.2. Son." The partner closed the portfolio gently. "Poor people need houses. I agree. But rich people pay our salaries. You want to change the world? Do it after you make enough money that you can afford to work for free. Until then, you design what clients pay for. Understand?" Young Marcus understood. He'd understood for years, watching his father work 70-hour weeks, watching his mother die because they couldn't afford treatment, watching the system grind good people to dust. Understanding didn't mean accepting. It meant learning to play the game well enough to change the rules later. "I understand," he said. He took his portfolio and left. Didn't cry. His father had taught him that men got angry, got even, got strong enough to protect the people they loved. But he didn't throw the designs away either. Marcus touched a key. The right monitor flickered to life, showing designs he'd refined for 20 years. Affordable housing with real beauty. Buildings with light and space and dignity. Community spaces that turned apartments into neighborhoods where people could build lives instead of just surviving. Architecture that served humanity instead of profit margins. His phone buzzed. Kate Morrison interview. Friday, 2 p.m. Marcus smiled, the smile of a chess player seeing an opening. Kate Morrison wanted to investigate him? Fine. She'd find nothing illegal. But if she was as good as her reputation suggested, she'd find something else. Something Marcus had been building evidence on for 16 months. She'd find Gerald Hartman. And when she did, Marcus would be ready. Kate Morrison's workspace looked like conspiracy theory central, organized chaos that drove neat people anxious. 4 monitors dominated her desk, property records 15 years back, building permits and zoning changes, financial records and tax returns, her notes in a sprawling web only she could decipher. The wall behind her, sticky notes, photographs, red string connecting dots only she saw after 6 months of obsessive investigation. To anyone else, madness. To Kate, a story waiting to be written. 6 months of work leading to one conclusion she knew in her gut. Nobody in real estate development was clean. Nobody. Especially not the ones who look like saints. Rachel Hoffman appeared with coffee from the good place. Friends since Northwestern's Medill School, Rachel was also Kate's editor, voice of reason when Kate's vendetta threatened to compromise her journalism. "Mitchell approved the series," Rachel said. "Full support. Front page, week-long run, possible national syndication. But Kate, are we sure about Ashford? His files are cleaner than a nun's conscience." Kate didn't look away from cross-referencing building permits with city council votes. "Nobody's that clean, Rachel. My father died building luxury condos for Morrison Construction. They look clean too, until I dug deep enough. Ashford's different. He pays above union wages. His buildings pass every inspection with 0 violations. His workers actually like him, Kate, which means he's smarter than the others." Kate turned, fire burning behind green eyes. "Better at hiding it, better at making people think he's one of the good guys. But nobody makes $4 billion from having a conscience. The money comes from somewhere, and I'm going to find out where." Rachel sighed. She'd heard this before. "Just be careful. Don't let your personal history cloud your judgment." "Noted," Kate said, turning back to screens. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Kate Morrison. The voice was deep, controlled, confident, the voice of power. "Ms. Morrison, Marcus Ashford, I understand you'd like to interview me about fraud." A pause. Kate heard amusement in it. "Friday, 2 p.m., my office. You'll have complete access, books, contracts, financial records, employee files, everything. You can interview anyone, examine any document, dig as deep as you want. The only question is, Do you have the courage to publish the truth when it's not the story you wanted to tell? The line went dead. Kate stared at her phone, cold smile touching her lips. What was that? Rachel asked. That was a man who thinks he's smarter than me. And is he? We'll find out Friday. Kate's mother looked smaller every visit, as if the disease was consuming her from inside out. Diane Morrison had been a force of nature. ICU nurse who'd worked double shifts after James died, put Kate through Northwestern on savings and sheer willpower. The strongest person Kate had ever known. Now 62 and looking 70, hooked to monitors, skin paper-thin and bruised from countless IVs. The surgeon says we can schedule the surgery soon, Diane said, voice thin but carrying that core of steel. Valve replacement, routine procedure, though I notice he's not the one getting his chest cracked open. She tried to smile. It didn't reach her eyes. Kate held her mother's trembling hand. How much? $85,000 total. Insurance covers $40,000. $45,000. Kate had $23,000 in savings, every penny from 5 years of living in a condemned studio, eating ramen, never taking vacations, never buying anything unnecessary. $23,000, less than half. I have savings, Kate said, trying to sound confident, and I'm working on a big series right now. Real estate fraud, corporate corruption, the kind of story that wins awards and comes with bonuses. If it's as big as I think, and it will be, Mom, Tribune will give me a promotion, maybe a signing bonus. I'll have the money, I promise. Diane's sharp eyes studied her daughter's face. Don't do anything reckless for money, Katie. I'm doing it for the truth, Kate said firmly. The money's just a bonus. She said it convincingly, almost believed it. But leaving the hospital, cold January wind cutting through her coat, Kate knew the truth. She needed this story, needed it big, needed it explosive, needed it career-making with awards and promotions, and most importantly, money. Marcus Ashford was going to give it to her, whether he knew it or not. Marcus's office wasn't what Kate expected. She'd braced for ostentatious wealth, gold fixtures, Italian marble, abstract art costing more than her salary. Instead, she found something that unsettled her more than ostentation would have. The space was large, corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Chicago's skyline, enough square footage for 3 of her apartments, but restrained, minimalist suggesting actual taste. Clean lines, warm wood, comfortable leather that looked used, bookshelves with actual books showing signs of being read. The only decoration, framed architectural drawings on one wall. Beautiful, detailed, thoughtful. Something about them nagged at her. More human than typical renderings. Less about making statements, more about actual functionality. Marcus Ashford stood when she entered. 6'2", broad-shouldered but not bulky. Charcoal gray suit, perfectly tailored but not flashy. Dark hair with distinguished silver at temples. Mid to late 40s. Unusual amber eyes that cataloged everything about her in 2 seconds. Ms. Morrison, he extended his hand, voice exactly what she'd heard on the phone, deep, controlled, confident. Coffee? Brendan mentioned you take it black, no sugar. Kate's guard shot up. You researched me. You've been investigating me for 6 months. That slight smile. I spent 20 minutes on Google. Fair's fair. She didn't take his hand, sat down instead, pulling out her digital recorder with a deliberate click that said this was official, on the record, going to end badly for him. Marcus sat across from her, completely unruffled. Let's skip the pleasantries, Kate said. Ashford Development has built 47 luxury high-rises in 15 years. Average, $800 per square foot. 85% of buyers are investors, not residents. People buying property as investment vehicles while actual families can't afford housing. Do you see anything morally questionable about that? Marcus leaned back, fingers steepled. No, I see supply meeting demand. I build safe buildings exceeding code requirements, pay workers union wages plus benefits, and profit sharing. Deliver a product worth its price. If the price is high, it's because quality is high. I don't apologize for excellence. While 40,000 Chicagoans are homeless, and you think I should build charity housing? I think someone with $4 billion has a social responsibility to do more than make rich people richer. Marcus leaned forward slightly, subtle movement that shifted the entire dynamic. The Ashford Foundation, which my sister Colleen runs, has donated $180 million to affordable housing nonprofits in the last decade. That's 4.3% of my net worth. What percentage of your income do you donate to charity, Ms. Morrison? Kate's throat went tight. Marcus continued, no triumph in his voice, just weary patience. I'm not asking to attack you. I'm making a point about easy answers versus actual solutions. Philanthropy is easy. Writing a check, showing up at galas, making a show of caring without changing anything systemic. I could donate $500 million and build 1,000 units of low-income housing tomorrow. Headlines, awards, people would call me a hero. He paused. And next year, the housing crisis would still be here. Because I didn't change the system that created it. Just put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Or I could use that $500 million to lobby for policy changes. Reform zoning laws that make affordable housing illegal in most neighborhoods. Create sustainable models that actually work long-term. That's what I'm doing, quietly, without PR campaigns. Because the work is the point, not the credit. It was too good an answer. Kate had interviewed dozens of executives. They all had practiced responses from consultants and lawyers. But something about Marcus's delivery, calm, direct, almost weary, made her wonder if he actually believed it, which was more dangerous than obvious lying. That sounds very noble, she said dryly, but I'll need to see your books to verify. Marcus pulled out a USB drive in a sealed evidence bag labeled with date, time, and his signature. He slid it across the polished wood. 15 years of financial records. Every transaction, contract, payment, expense. Brendan Sullivan, my CFO, will explain any line item. The drive is encrypted. Here's the password. He handed her a card. Everything organized by year and category. Probably more information than you know what to do with, but I'd rather give too much than have you accuse me of hiding something. Kate stared at the drive like it might explode. You're just giving this to me? Complete access? You asked for it. Nobody does that. Nobody just hands over their books without lawyers and negotiations. I do, Marcus said simply, because I have nothing to hide, unlike some people in this industry. Something in how he said that last part, a slight emphasis, a suggestion he knew something, was hinting at something. Kate's journalistic instincts fired. What do you mean, unlike some people? I mean, not everyone in Chicago's real estate development operates the way I do. Some developers cut corners, some bribe officials, some displace families and build substandard housing and get away with it because they're good at hiding their crimes. Marcus met her eyes steadily. If you're really interested in exposing corruption, Ms. Morrison, you should expand your investigation beyond me, because I'm not the story you're looking for. How do I know this isn't deflection, pointing me at competitors to take heat off yourself? You don't, Marcus said, but you're an investigative journalist. You know how to verify information, distinguish between deflection and legitimate leads. So verify, investigate, follow the evidence wherever it leads. And when you're done, publish the truth, whatever that truth is. Kate wanted to argue, find the flaw, catch him in a lie. But his face showed nothing but calm certainty, and the USB drive sat between them like a challenge. Why, she asked finally, why cooperate like this? Why give me ammunition I could use against you? For the first time, something shifted in Marcus's expression. The professional mask cracked slightly. Kate glimpsed something underneath that looked almost like pain. Because your father died when Morrison Construction cut corners to save money, Marcus said quietly. Because they blamed him instead of taking responsibility. Because that company prioritized profit over safety, and a good man died and his family was destroyed. And the executives responsible walked away with golden parachutes and zero consequences. Kate felt punched in the chest. I know your story, Ms. Morrison. I know why you became a journalist. I know why you've made it your mission to expose corporate corruption. And I understand completely why you don't trust anyone in this industry. Why you assume we're all guilty until proven innocent. Why you look at someone like me and see your father's killer. His voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. But I'm not Morrison Construction. I don't cut corners. I don't sacrifice safety for profit. I don't treat workers like disposable resources. And I'm going to prove that to you, whether you want me to or not. The recorder was still running. Kate's hand had gone numb. How did you... Public record, Marcus said. The lawsuit, the investigation, your articles. You weren't shy about making it personal. And you shouldn't be. Your father deserved justice, and you made sure he got it. That takes courage. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket, signaled the interview was over. The interview is over, Ms. Morrison. You have what you asked for. The only question now is whether you'll publish the truth when you find it, or the story you already decided to write before you walk through that door. He walked to the door, opened it, waited. Kate grabbed the USB drive and recorder, walked out on unsteady legs, mind spinning with questions and doubts, and the terrible possibility that she'd been wrong about Marcus Ashford. Rachel was waiting in the car. How did it go? Kate looked at the USB drive, at the evidence bag with Marcus's signature, at the challenge he'd given her. I have no idea, she said honestly. Brendan came in once Kate was safely in the elevator. You gave her everything? Complete financial records? Open access? Are you out of your mind? I gave her what she asked for. Marcus stood at the window, watching Kate walk to her car far below. She'll spend the next week looking for proof I'm corrupt. She won't find it. Because you're not corrupt? Or because you're too smart to leave evidence? Marcus turned to his oldest friend. Brendan, in 25 years, have I ever lied to you? No. Have I ever asked you to do anything illegal or unethical? No. Have I ever sacrificed our values for profit? No, but then you know the answer. Marcus pulled up a file. 16 months ago, I discovered Gerald Hartman has been bribing city officials to secure development contracts. I've been collecting evidence, but it's not enough for a criminal case. Too many gaps. Too much circumstantial. I need someone with investigative skills and legal authority to connect the dots. Brendan's eyes widen. You think Morrison will find Hartman? If she's as good as her reputation, and I think she is, she'll stumble across the pattern eventually. West Side displacement, safety violations, offshore shell corporations, falsified inspection reports. It's all there if you know where to look. And Kate Morrison knows where to look. And when she does, she'll need an ally who understands the industry, someone with resources and connections. Someone who can help her build a case strong enough to take Hartman down. Marcus smiled slightly. She'll need me. Brendan shook his head. That's either brilliant or insane. You're using a journalist who wants to destroy you to take down your competitor. I'm giving her tools to do what she already wants to do. Expose corruption and protect workers. Hartman has displaced 800 families, built substandard housing that's going to kill someone eventually. Structural problems, electrical issues, building code violations. He's bribing officials, falsifying documents, and getting away with it because he's smart and careful. Marcus's voice went cold. If Kate Morrison can stop him, I'll sleep better knowing those families are safe. If it also removes my biggest business rival and clears the way for my affordable housing projects to get permits, Hartman's been blocking. That's enlightened self-interest. You're playing a dangerous game. I've been playing dangerous games my whole life. This is just the first one that might actually change something. And if Morrison turns on you, if she finds Hartman but decides you're guilty too, Marcus thought about Kate Morrison's green eyes burning with conviction and grief. Then I was wrong about her, but I don't think I am. Kate Morrison wants the truth. And the truth is that I'm not her enemy. Gerald Hartman is. She just doesn't know it yet. The USB drive sat on Kate's desk like a loaded gun, untouched for 4 hours while she'd paced, eaten half a container of cold Thai food, tried to decide whether Marcus Ashford was the most honest CEO in Chicago or the most sophisticated liar she'd ever met. Rachel had come over with wine. Now they both stared at Kate's laptop. "We should just plug it in," Rachel said, "or it's got malware that'll fry my system and destroy 6 months of investigation." "Kate, you're being paranoid." "I'm being careful." But Kate pulled out her air-gapped laptop, the one never connected to the internet, used specifically for potentially dangerous files. She plugged in the drive, entered the password, waited. Nothing exploded, just files. Thousands of files, organized exactly as Marcus promised. By year, category, transaction type. Every contract for 15 years, every payment, every expense, every employee, every building. The most comprehensive financial record Kate had ever seen from a private company. "Holy shit," Rachel breathed. "This is everything. Most companies fight for months to release a fraction of this. He just gave it to you?" Kate was already diving in. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. Rachel fell asleep on Kate's couch, but Kate kept reading, kept digging, kept searching for the crack in the facade, the smoking gun proving Marcus Ashford was just another rich man pretending to be good. And she kept finding nothing. Every contract clean, every payment documented, every expense justified. Employee salaries not just competitive, generous. Union wages plus 20%, full benefits, profit sharing, educational assistance for workers' children, paid family leave exceeding legal requirements. Building permits showed 0 violations across 15 years and 47 projects. 0. Most developers averaged a dozen per project. "This doesn't make sense," Kate muttered. "Nobody's this clean." At 3 a.m., exhausted and frustrated, she found it. "Wait." She sat up straight. "Rachel, wake up." Rachel jerked awake. "What?" "Tungsten Properties, LLC." Kate pointed at the screen. Ashford transferred $12 million to them over 5 years. Cash transfers. No documentation about what the money was for. Just $12 million to a company I can't find any information about. Rachel moved to the screen. "That's weird. Everything else is meticulously documented, but this is just blank transfers?" "Exactly." Kate felt the familiar rush. "This is it. This is what he's hiding. 20 million in unexplained transfers to a company that doesn't seem to exist publicly." She searched. Tungsten Properties, LLC, Chicago. Real estate. Nothing. No website, no public records, no business filings she could access without deeper search. "Shell Corporation," Rachel said. "Has to be. Probably offshore, maybe laundering money. Or exactly what I've been looking for." Kate drafted an email to Marcus, then paused. "No, not email. I want to see his face when I ask." She texted at 3:15 a.m. "We need to talk about Tungsten Properties. Tomorrow morning." Response in 30 seconds. "Monday, 8 a.m., Cafe Molly's on Adams. I'll explain everything." Kate stared at the immediate response, like he'd been expecting the question, like he'd wanted her to find tungsten. "Katie," Rachel's voice, "what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Marcus Ashford is either completely innocent or the smartest criminal I've ever met." Kate closed her laptop, "And I'm not sure which option scares me more." Monday, 8 a.m. Cafe Molly's on Adams Street. Cafe Molly's was where Chicago's power players met for breakfast meetings that looked casual but determined the fate of millions. Marcus Ashford was already waiting at a corner table, giving him clear view of entrance and street beyond, the choice of someone who thought strategically about everything. 2 cups of coffee already sat on the table, black, no sugar. Kate sat without greeting, without small talk. She pulled out her laptop and turned it so Marcus could see the screen. $12 million to Tungsten Properties over 5 years. No documentation, no explanation. Want to tell me what that's about? Marcus looked at the screen for a long moment. Then he took a slow sip of coffee, set down the cup with careful precision, and met her eyes. No. Kate blinked. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not going to explain Tungsten Properties to you. You said you'd explain everything. I said I'd explain Ashford Development's books. I gave you complete access to every business transaction. Tungsten is a personal investment. It's separate from Ashford Development, and it's legal. That's all you need to know. If it's legal, why hide it? I'm not hiding it. Marcus's voice was patient, almost gentle, which somehow made Kate angrier. It's in the financial records you demanded. I disclosed it completely. What I'm declining to do is explain my personal investments to a journalist looking for reasons to destroy me. I'm allowed to have privacy, Ms. Morrison. The silence crackled with tension. Kate felt her jaw clench. You're really good at this. The Concerned Citizen Act. The transparent billionaire who's just trying to help. The man with nothing to hide who hides things anyway. But I've seen this pattern before, Mr. Ashford. Powerful men with secrets. It always ends the same way. Always. The secrets come out and people get hurt. Pattern isn't proof. Marcus's voice went cold for the first time. And prejudice isn't journalism. You've decided I'm guilty and you're just looking for evidence to support what you already believe. That's not investigating. That's prosecuting. He stood, pulling out his wallet and dropping a 20 on the table, overpaying by at least $10. When you're ready to actually investigate instead of confirm your biases, call me. Until then, enjoy the coffee. He walked out, leaving Kate staring at her untouched cup in the growing sense that she'd just been outmaneuvered. The manila envelope sat on Kate's desk like a coiled snake. No one had seen who delivered it. No courier service. No name. Just a manila envelope with her name in block letters. Inside, photographs of Marcus Ashford with an unidentified woman at a construction site. Not romantic, they were looking at blueprints, clearly working. But the setting was different from his polished office. Real construction, active building, documents about Tungsten Properties, bank transfers showing the $12 million Kate had found, plus more. Property acquisitions in Chicago's South Side, 47 properties over 5 years, all in historically poor neighborhoods, all purchased at below market prices. And a handwritten note, your hero isn't as clean as he pretends. Tungsten is just the beginning. If you want the whole story, you need to dig deeper. A friend. Rachel looked over Kate's shoulder. This is either the best lead you've ever gotten or the most obvious trap in the history of journalism. Could be both. Kate studied the photographs. The woman with Marcus was young, professional, clearly knowledgeable about architecture. Who sends anonymous tips with this much documentation? Someone who wants you to investigate Marcus. Someone who benefits if you take him down. Someone who's scared of what Marcus knows about them. Kate felt pieces clicking into place. Marcus told me to expand my investigation beyond him. Said not everyone operates the way he does. What if this isn't about Marcus at all? What if someone's trying to use me to take him down before he exposes them? Rachel grabbed Kate's laptop. Tungsten Properties, Southside Real Estate. Let me cross-reference. 20 minutes later, they had a partial picture. Tungsten had indeed been buying up Southside properties. 47 parcels in 5 years, all in low-income neighborhoods, purchased from families or small landlords at prices that seemed reasonable. Classic gentrification play. Buy low in poor neighborhoods, wait for zoning changes, sell high or develop luxury housing. Displace families, profit from desperation. But wait, Rachel said, frowning. They haven't sold any of the properties. 47 purchases, 0 sales. That doesn't make sense for a flip. Maybe waiting for the market to peak. For 5 years? That's not how flipping works. Rachel pulled up more records. And look, they're renovating. Actively. Permits for electrical, plumbing, structural work. But they're not raising rents. In fact, she paused. According to these filings, rents are going down. $400 a month for a 2-bedroom. Kate, that's insane for Chicago. That's barely covering costs. Kate felt her certainty waver. That didn't fit the pattern. Gentrification was about profit, maximizing return, pushing out the poor for the rich. Lowering rents was the opposite. Her phone rang. Blocked number. Kate Morrison. The voice was electronically distorted, mechanical, inhuman. Ms. Morrison, listen carefully. Marcus Ashford is playing you. Tungsten Properties is a money laundering scheme. He's funneling money from overseas investors, hiding assets, using those Southside properties to clean dirty money. I have proof. Bank records, wire transfers, everything you need. Meet me tonight, 9 p.m., Millennium Park near Cloudgate. Come alone. The line went dead. Rachel stared with wide eyes. Please tell me you're not actually considering. It could be a whistleblower, someone on the inside, or someone trying to get you alone in a dark park to scare you off, or worse. Kate looked at the envelope, photos, documents. It's also the only way to know for sure. Rachel sighed, recognizing the stubborn set of Kate's jaw. Fine, but I'm tracking your phone. And if you're not back by 10, I'm calling the police. Chicago in January was brutal. Millennium Park at night especially harsh. Wind came off Lake Michigan like a knife, cutting through Kate's coat as she stood near Cloudgate, the massive, reflective bean sculpture, waiting for a mysterious source who might be a whistleblower or murderer or conspiracy theorist. The park was mostly empty. A few hardy souls walking miserable-looking dogs. A homeless man asleep near a bench under cardboard and blankets. A young couple hurrying past. Then he appeared. A man in his mid-50s, expensive wool coat, silver hair perfectly styled despite wind, carrying a leather briefcase screaming importance. He looked like every corporate executive Kate had ever interviewed. Polished, confident, comfortable in his power. Ms. Morrison. He extended a hand she didn't shake. Gerald Hartman. I've been following your work. Very impressive what you did to Morrison Construction. You have a real talent for exposing corporate corruption. Kate's guard went up immediately. Gerald Hartman. She knew that name. Hartman Properties, one of Chicago's biggest real estate developers, second only to Ashford Development. A competitor, a rival. A concerned citizen who's watched Marcus Ashford lie to this city for too long. Hartman's smile was practiced. Tungsten Properties is how he launders money from overseas investors. Chinese money, Russian money, Saudi money, anyone who wants to hide assets in the United States. He buys properties through shell corporations, runs money through fake renovations, comes out with clean American dollars. He held out the briefcase. I have bank records that prove everything. Wire transfers, offshore accounts, documentation that will make your Morrison Construction investigation look like a practice run. Kate didn't take the briefcase. Why not go to the FBI yourself? Because Marcus Ashford has connections I don't. Police commissioners, city council members, judges, federal prosecutors. He's spent years building a network that protects him. I go to the FBI, my report disappears into a bureaucratic black hole, and Ashford gets a friendly warning. Hartman stepped closer, lowering his voice. But a journalist? An investigative journalist with your reputation, with your personal motivation to expose developers who hurt working families? You're the only weapon that can actually hurt him. And what do you get out of this? Justice. Isn't that what you want too? Kate studied his face, looking for tells, signs of deception. But Hartman was too good at this, too practiced. His expression showed nothing but concerned citizenship, which was exactly what made her suspicious. I need to verify this information independently, she said. I don't publish based on anonymous tips. Of course, I'd expect nothing less. Hartman set the briefcase on a nearby bench. Take your time. Verify everything. When you're satisfied it's real, and you will be, publish it. Bring Ashford down. He walked away, disappearing into darkness between streetlights, leaving Kate alone with a briefcase full of accusations and the growing certainty that she was being manipulated. The question was, toward the truth or away from it? She grabbed the briefcase but didn't open it. Not here. Not without Rachel in a secure location and time to think. But walking back to her car, Kate couldn't shake the feeling that she just made a choice that would change everything. She just didn't know if it was the right choice or the worst mistake of her life. Kate walked past security with determined stride that made people instinctively move. The guards had learned to recognize her. She'd been in and out 3 times. This time was different. This time she wasn't here to investigate. She was here to confront. She didn't wait for Marcus's assistant. Didn't knock. Just threw open the door and walked in like she owned the place. Marcus looked up, completely unsurprised. Gerald Hartman contacted you. It wasn't a question. Kate's world tilted slightly. How did you? Because he's done it to 3 other journalists in the past 2 years. Marcus closed his laptop and stood, moving to the windows. Every time someone investigates the development industry in Chicago, Hartman approaches them privately, feeds them information about me, claims I'm corrupt, that I'm laundering money, that I'm the real villain while he's just a concerned citizen. He turned to face her, and Kate saw something new in his expression. Exhaustion. Not physical tiredness, but the weariness of someone fighting the same battle too long. Did he give you bank records, wire transfers, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, or maybe Delaware? Delaware and Nevada, Kate said slowly. How did you know? Because it's always the same playbook. He manufactures evidence that looks real enough to fool someone who doesn't know what they're looking at. Mixes in just enough truth. Yes, I own tungsten properties. Yes, I transferred $12 million. With complete fabrications about what that money was used for. Marcus pulled up a file on his computer. Sit down, Kate. Please, we need to talk. And I need you to actually listen instead of assuming I'm lying. Kate sat, not because he'd asked, but because her legs suddenly felt unsteady. Marcus took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I bid on the South Loop redevelopment project. $600 million, public-private partnership, one of the biggest projects Chicago had seen in a decade. Hartman bid too. I won. He pulled up documents, turned the monitor. I won fair and square. Better design, more community input, lower cost to the city, higher quality guarantees. The selection committee voted unanimously for me. Hartman accused me of bribing city officials, filed a formal complaint, triggered an investigation that lasted 8 months and cost me $40 million in delays and legal fees. The documents showed exactly what he claimed. City records, committee votes, investigation results clearing Marcus completely. I was innocent. The investigation proved it. But by the time I was cleared, Hartman had secured 2 other contracts, West Side Development and the Pilsen Mixed-Use Project. I started looking into his operations, trying to understand how he kept winning contracts when his proposals were consistently lower quality and higher cost than mine. Marcus's voice went cold. That's when I found it. Hartman has been systematically bribing city council members for at least 6 years. Wire transfers disguised as consulting fees. Cash payments hidden through shell corporations in Delaware and Nevada. Falsified inspection reports to hide building code violations. He's built an empire on corruption, and he's gotten away with it because he's very, very careful. He pulled up more files, bank records, emails, photographs. I've been collecting evidence for 16 months, everything you see here, but it's not enough for a criminal prosecution. Too many gaps, too much circumstantial. I need someone with investigative authority and journalistic credibility to connect the dots, to fill in the blanks, to build a case that will actually stick. Kate stared at the screen. You wanted me to investigate you. I wanted you to investigate the industry, knowing that if you were any good, and you are, Kate, you're better than good, you'd eventually stumble across the pattern. You'd find Hartman. And when you did, you'd need an ally who understands how this business works, who has resources and connections. This is insane. Kate stood, pacing like a caged animal. You're telling me Hartman approached me specifically to deflect from his own crimes? That everything he gave me is fake? Not everything. That's what makes it effective. The $12 million to Tungsten? Real. The property purchases in the South Side? Real. But the explanation, the money laundering, the offshore investors, that's fabrication designed to destroy me before I can expose him. Then what is Tungsten? Kate demanded. If you're not laundering money, what are you doing with $12 million in a poor neighborhood? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up his phone, tapped a few times, handed it to her. On the screen, architectural renderings. Not the cold, corporate designs she'd seen in Ashford Development's portfolio. These were different, warm, human. Buildings designed for real people, with attention to light and space and community that spoke to someone who actually cared. Tungsten is the project I've been trying to build for 20 years, Marcus said quietly. Affordable housing that doesn't look like a housing project. Quality construction at sustainable prices. $400 a month for a 2-bedroom. Community spaces, childcare facilities, small business incubators. Everything I designed when I was 19 and still believed architecture could change the world. Kate scrolled through the renderings, feeling something shift in her chest. These weren't the buildings of someone trying to exploit poor communities. These were the buildings of someone trying to help them. Construction is 90% complete, Marcus continued. 200 families have signed leases. We're waiting for final occupancy permits from the city, which Hartman is blocking through his contacts at City Hall. If I can't get those permits by March, families lose their deposits, and I lose everything. $12 million, 5 years of work, and the proof of concept I need to scale this model nationwide. He met her eyes. Hartman approached you now because he knows we're close to launching. If you publish accusations of money laundering before Tungsten opens, the city will pull the permits. The project dies. The families lose their homes, and Hartman gets to keep operating without anyone investigating his real crimes. Kate felt like the ground was shifting. Why should I believe you instead of him? Because I'm going to prove it. Marcus opened a drawer and pulled out a set of keys. These are keys to every Tungsten property. Addresses on the tag. Go there, right now. Talk to the families. Look at the construction. Review the permits, contracts, budgets. Everything is transparent because I have nothing to hide. He pulled out another folder. And these are the files I have on Hartman. Everything I've collected in 16 months. Bank records, witness statements, building inspection reports showing code violations he hid. It's not complete. I need your help to finish it. But it's a start. Kate took the keys and folder, feeling the weight of them. The weight of a choice that would determine everything that came next. If I do this, she said slowly, if I investigate both of you, and I find out you're lying to me about any of this, then you publish everything. You destroy me. You make me pay for lying to you. Marcus's voice was absolutely serious. But Kate, if you investigate honestly and find that I'm telling the truth, then you help me expose Hartman. You help me save Tungsten. You help me prove that development doesn't have to exploit people to be profitable. Why me? Kate asked. Why not go to the FBI yourself? Why bring in a journalist who's been trying to destroy you for 6 months? Because the FBI can't touch Hartman. He owns too many people. Private investigators can gather evidence, but can't publish it. But you? Marcus smiled slightly. You have the credibility, the platform, and the personal motivation to make this stick. When Kate Morrison publishes an investigation, people pay attention. Prosecutors pay attention. Change happens. He extended his hand. 2 weeks. You investigate both of us. Full access to everything. If you find I'm the criminal, you publish that. If you find Hartman is the criminal, we work together to expose him. Either way, the truth comes out. Kate looked at his hand for a long moment. Every instinct screamed this was a trap. But those architectural renderings, those designs created by someone who actually cared. And her mother, $45,000. A story this big would come with a bonus, maybe a Pulitzer nomination, maybe enough to save her mother's life. She shook his hand. 2 weeks. But Marcus, if you're playing me, I'm not. I promise you that. As Kate left carrying keys and evidence, and the weight of a decision she wasn't sure was right, she couldn't shake the feeling that she just agreed to something that would change everything. She just hoped it wouldn't destroy her in the process. The address led to a neighborhood Kate recognized from research. Historically working class, predominantly Black and Latino families, the kind of area Chicago's glossy downtown developments pretended didn't exist. The Tungsten Warehouse didn't look like much from outside. Converted industrial space, brick walls marked with decades of Chicago weather, recently replaced windows. But when Kate used Marcus's keys and stepped inside, she stopped breathing. The space was huge, converted factory floor now divided into construction staging and working office. But what caught her attention wasn't the size. It was what was being built. Construction crews worked throughout, and Kate's journalist eye cataloged details. Diverse workforce, professional equipment, safety gear that looked new and well-maintained, union insignia on hard hats. These weren't day laborers being exploited. These were professional construction workers being paid professional wages. Families toured partially completed units, parents with children looking at apartments with hope Kate hadn't expected to see. An older woman stood in what would be a kitchen, crying while a younger woman, daughter maybe, held her hand talking about which wall to paint, what color. Children's laughter echoed from what would become a community room where someone had set up temporary play equipment. Can I help you? Kate turned to find a woman in her 30s approaching, hard hat and work boots, clipboard in hand. Beth Sullivan, according to the name tag, site manager. I'm Kate Morrison, Chicago Tribune. Marcus Ashford gave me access to tour the site. Beth's expression shifted from suspicious to warmly enthusiastic. Oh, yeah, he mentioned you might come by. You're the journalist doing the big investigation. Come on, I'll show you around. They spent the next hour walking through construction. Beth explained every detail. The reinforced foundations exceeding building code requirements. The energy-efficient windows reducing heating costs for tenants. The community spaces on every floor. The child care co-op in Building A. Mr. Ashford talked to every single family before designing this place, Beth said as they walked through a completed model unit. Asked what we needed. Actually listened to the answers. Childcare near work? There's a co-op, grocery store within walking distance? He negotiated with Whole Foods to open a location 3 blocks away. Not a full store, but a market stand that sells basics at regular grocery prices, not Whole Foods prices. You're a tenant here? Kate asked. Building C, 3rd floor, 2-bedroom, $400 a month. Beth's eyes got bright with tears she was trying to hold back. I'm a single mom, 2 daughters. I was paying $1,100 for a 1-bedroom in a building with rats and a landlord who wouldn't fix anything. When Mr. Ashford's people contacted me about tungsten, I thought it was a scam. $400 a month for a place this nice? In Chicago? Impossible. What convinced you it wasn't? He didn't try to sell me. Beth's voice was soft with remembered surprise. He just asked questions. What did I need in an apartment? What would make my life easier? What did my neighborhood need to thrive? Then he showed me the designs and said, "We're building this because people like you deserve better. Not, we're doing you a favor. Not, you should be grateful. Just, you deserve better." She wiped her eyes quickly. "Sorry, my daughters are going to grow up in a real home. Not an apartment where I'm afraid to let them play outside. A real home, in a real community, where people take care of each other. That matters." Kate felt something crack in her chest. This wasn't a scam. It wasn't money laundering or exploitation, or any of the cynical explanations she'd developed over years of investigating corporate corruption. This was real. They toured 2 more buildings. Kate talked to more families. A retired teacher living in an apartment with black mold. A young couple expecting their first child. A widower who'd almost given up on affordable housing after his wife died and left him with medical debt. Every single person told the same story. Marcus Ashford had listened, had asked what they needed, had designed buildings around real people's real lives instead of around profit margins. Kate arrived at 6 a.m. to find Marcus already there, standing in an unfinished apartment watching the sunrise through bare windows. He wore jeans and a Northwestern hoodie instead of his usual suit, and without the armor of expensive clothes, he looked younger, more human, more like someone who could be hurt. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. He turned, unsurprised. "Old habit. I've been coming here every morning for 5 years, watching it become real, one day at a time, watching a dream turn into concrete and steel in actual homes." Kate joined him at the window. The South Side spread out before them, neighborhoods where her father had worked, where families like hers had struggled and survived and built lives from nothing. "Tell me something," she said quietly. "Why do this? Really, not the public answer, the truth." Marcus was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My father died when I was 19. Heart attack on a job site. He was 48 years old, worked as a construction foreman for 30 years, never missed a day unless he was physically incapable of standing. He died surrounded by concrete and steel, building something he'd never be able to afford himself." His voice was steady, but Kate heard the pain underneath. 2 weeks after the funeral, our landlord raised our rent 40%. My mother couldn't pay it. We'd used all our savings on the funeral. Dad didn't have life insurance, thought he was too young to die. We were evicted. Marcus sat on a dusty windowsill, staring at his hands. For 6 months, my mother, my 10-year-old sister, and I lived with 3 other families in a 2-bedroom apartment in Bridgeport. 7 adults, 5 children, sharing 1 bathroom and a kitchen the size of a closet. I was at U of I, taking the train home every weekend to help however I could, working 2 jobs to contribute rent money. Watching my mother, this strong woman who'd survived my father's death and raised 2 kids alone, crying herself to sleep because she couldn't provide basic shelter for her children. Kate felt tears prick her eyes. I slept on the couch. Colleen slept on the floor. My mother shared a bed with 2 other women. We were evicted not because we couldn't work hard enough, not because we were irresponsible, but because landlords can raise rent whenever they want, and working-class families have 0 protection, 0 power, 0 recourse. He looked up at her. I swore then, when I had power, I would make sure no family went through that. I would build housing that people could actually afford, that they could be proud to live in, that treated them like human beings instead of income streams. Marcus's voice was fierce now. Ashford development made me rich, very rich, but that was never the point. The point was getting enough power, enough resources, enough credibility to do this. He gestured around the unfinished apartment. Tungsten, real housing for real people at prices they can actually pay. If this works, I can scale it nationwide. Thousands of families, real change. He met her eyes. That's why I've kept it secret. That's why I've been so careful. Because if Hartman or anyone else destroys this before I can prove it works, I've wasted 5 years and $12 million, and the families who are counting on this lose everything. And I can't fail them the way the system failed my family. Kate sat beside him on the windowsill, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. My father was 42 when he died, she said quietly. Morrison Construction had him working on scaffolding that hadn't been properly inspected. They were behind schedule, over budget, cutting corners everywhere to meet their profit targets. The scaffolding collapsed. Dad fell 40 feet. 3 other men died with him. Her voice cracked. Morrison Construction blamed the workers, said they didn't follow safety protocols. The insurance company denied our claim based on that. Mom had to sell our house in Detroit to pay the medical bills from the 3 days Dad survived in the ICU. We moved here to Chicago to live with my cousin Patrick. I was 16 years old, watching everything we had disappear because some executive in an expensive suit decided safety inspections cost too much. She looked at Marcus. That executive went on TV after the accident, expressed condolences, called it a tragedy, never once admitted responsibility, never once said, "We failed these men." He kept his job, kept his salary, probably got a bonus that year for bringing the project in under budget by cutting corners that killed 4 people. Kate's hands were shaking. I decided then that I would make sure people like him couldn't hide anymore, that I would expose every corporate crime, every worker exploitation, every time companies chose profit over people's lives. I couldn't bring Dad back, but I could make sure his death meant something. Marcus reached over and took her hand. The gesture was simple, natural, and somehow exactly what Kate needed. "We're not that different," he said quietly, "both driven by the people we lost, both fighting the system that killed them. You exposed the rot. I'm trying to replace it with something better. We're both trying to fix what's broken. Except you have $4 billion. Money's just a tool." His voice was fierce. "Grief, purpose, the need to make their deaths matter. That's what drives us. That's what makes us get up at dawn and work until midnight and refuse to quit even when everything seems impossible." Kate felt something shift in her chest. She'd been so certain Marcus was just another privileged executive playing at charity. But this was real. This was someone who understood loss the way she did. Someone who'd turned grief into purpose instead of letting it destroy him. "Thank you," she whispered, "for telling me, for trusting me with this. Thank you for listening, for being willing to see past your assumptions." The sun broke over the horizon, flooding the unfinished apartment with golden light. And for just a moment, Kate let herself imagine what this place would become. Not just affordable housing, but homes, real homes for people who deserve them. Kate walked into the Tribune building feeling like she was floating. 3 days of investigating Hartman, 3 days of working alongside Marcus, 3 days of watching Tungsten come together and realizing she'd been completely wrong about everything. She had the story of her career sitting on her laptop. Not the story she'd expected, not an expose of Marcus Ashford, but something bigger. Gerald Hartman's empire of corruption. 800 families displaced, millions in bribes, buildings that didn't meet code. A pattern of exploitation that made Morrison Construction look like amateurs. She had witnesses ready to talk. She had documents. She had everything. Security guards waited at her desk. Mitchell Sterling stood with his arms crossed, flanked by the Tribune's legal team and an HR representative. Kate's stomach dropped. "Kate," Mitchell's voice was cold. "My office. Now." In Mitchell's office, the lawyer spread documents across the desk like a prosecutor presenting evidence at trial. "Gerald Hartman Properties has filed a restraining order against you," the lawyer said without preamble. "Harassment, trespassing on private property, defamation, and intimidation of witnesses. They have affidavits from 3 former tenants claiming you contacted them with leading questions, made false promises of protection, and attempted to coerce testimony. Kate's world tilted. What? That's insane. I interviewed 3 people, legally, with their full consent, following every journalistic standard. They also filed a complaint with the Journalism Ethics Board. The lawyer's voice was flat, professional, delivering bad news like a weather report. Accusing you of collaborating with Marcus Ashford, undisclosed conflict of interest, acceptance of access in materials in exchange for favorable coverage, failure to maintain objectivity. Mitchell slid a photograph across the desk. Kate and Marcus at the tungsten site, heads close together over blueprints, his hand on her shoulder, both of them smiling. The photo was taken from a distance, through a window, clearly surveillance. Anonymous tip, Mitchell said, delivered this morning with extensive documentation of your partnership with Ashford. Kate, this looks bad, really bad. Someone's been following us? Kate's voice came out higher than she intended. Someone's been watching us, photographing us, and you're worried about ethics violations? I'm worried that one of my reporters has been working with a billionaire developer to take down his competitor, Mitchell said. I'm worried that everything you've told me about Hartman might be manufactured by Ashford to destroy a business rival. I'm worried that you've compromised your objectivity so badly that nothing you write can be trusted. Mitchell, listen to me. I can't. His voice was tired. Kate, I have to suspend you pending the ethics investigation. Press badge, building access, email account, 2 weeks minimum, possibly permanent, depending on what the board finds. Kate's hands shook as she surrendered her credentials. 15 years of building her reputation, of proving herself, of fighting for every story and every byline. Gone, just like that. If the ethics board rules against you, Mitchell added quietly, the Tribune can't employ you, and no other major newspaper will touch you either. You understand what's at stake? She understood. Her career, her credibility, her mother's surgery, everything. She left the building in a daze, stood on the sidewalk in the freezing morning air, and felt her phone buzzing with messages. Rachel. OMG, Kate, what happened? Patrick. Saw the news, you okay? And Marcus. I heard what happened, where are you? I'm coming to get you. Kate's thumb hovered over the reply button. Every instinct screamed at her to push him away. This disaster had started the moment she'd gotten close to Marcus Ashford. The closer she got, the worse things became. She typed, don't. Every time I'm near you, this gets worse. You're toxic to my career. This was a mistake, all of it. She hit send, then blocked his number. Then she went home, locked the door, poured a glass of wine at 10 in the morning, and let herself fall apart. Brendan watched Marcus hurl a coffee cup against the wall with enough force to shatter it into a dozen pieces. Coffee dripped down the expensive wallpaper like blood. Hartman has someone watching us, Marcus said, his voice deadly calm in the way that meant he was furious beyond measure. He's had surveillance on us for days, maybe weeks, photographing us, documenting everything, building a case. Marcus, we can't legally. I don't want legal options right now. Marcus pulled out his phone with hands that shook slightly, not from fear, but from rage. Get me Dexter Kane. The private investigator? Marcus, if we're caught using someone like him, Kate Morrison's career is being destroyed because she helped me, because she believed me, because she had the integrity to investigate honestly and follow the evidence instead of her biases. Marcus's amber eyes were cold as winter ice. I will not let that stand. I will not let Hartman destroy a good person to protect himself. Brendan had known Marcus for 25 years. He'd seen him angry before, but this was different. This was personal in a way that business rivals and corporate competition had never been. This isn't just about tungsten anymore, is it? Brendan asked quietly. Marcus didn't answer. He was already dialing. The knock on the door startled Kate from her fourth glass of wine, and her 100th replay of the day's disaster. She'd ignored calls from Rachel, from Patrick, from her mother. She'd sat on her couch in the dark and watched her career burn down and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. She opened the door to find Marcus standing in the hallway, suit rumpled, tie loosened, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in one day. "I told you not to come," Kate said. "You blocked my number. I couldn't call to argue." He stepped forward slightly. "Kate, please, just listen." She stepped aside because she was too tired to fight, too defeated to care. He came in, and the apartment suddenly felt too small. "I know you're angry," Marcus said. "I know you think being near me destroys everything. But what happened today, that's Hartman. He's desperate because we're getting close, because we have evidence that could put him in prison. So he's doing what he always does when cornered. He's attacking." Kate laughed bitterly. "Close to what? I'm suspended, under investigation. Even if I'm cleared, my reputation is shredded. No newspaper will trust me. No source will talk to me. My career is over." Then we fight back. We expose Hartman so thoroughly, so completely, that the ethics complaint looks like what it is: a desperate attempt to silence the journalist who was about to destroy him. With what evidence? Everything we have is circumstantial. We have victims too scared to testify, documents that a good lawyer could claim are fabricated, patterns that look suspicious but aren't criminal. Her phone rang. Hospital. Kate's hands shook as she answered. "Yes?" The nurse's voice was professionally sympathetic, the tone of someone delivering bad news they delivered 100 times before. "Ms. Morrison, regarding your mother's surgery, we've been trying to reach you. Without a confirmed payment plan, we need to postpone the procedure." "For how long?" "6 months, minimum. We can't schedule without financial guarantee." The phone slipped from Kate's fingers. 6 months. Her mother didn't have 6 months. The last cardiology report had been clear. The valve was deteriorating faster than expected. Waiting 6 months meant risking sudden cardiac failure. Waiting 6 months meant her mother might die. Marcus picked up the phone, looked at the screen, and his expression shifted to understanding. "Your mother's surgery, $45,000. I just lost my job, lost my income, lost any chance of getting the bonus I was counting on." Kate felt tears burning behind her eyes. "She's going to die because I helped you, because I trusted you, because I was stupid enough to think I could investigate honestly and somehow come out ahead." "Kate, don't," her voice broke. "Don't say you'll pay for it. I won't be your charity case. I won't owe you. I won't." She couldn't finish. The words got trapped somewhere between her heart and her throat, tangled up with fear and grief and the terrible weight of consequences. Marcus crossed the space between them in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. Kate resisted for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing against his chest, finally letting herself break down completely. "I'll fix this," Marcus murmured into her hair. "All of it. Hartman, your job, your mother's surgery. I promise. I swear to you, Kate, I will fix this." "You can't promise that. You can't control everything. Watch me." Kate pulled back to look at him. His amber eyes were fierce and certain and completely sincere. And despite everything, despite the disaster of the past 12 hours, despite every rational thought in her head screaming that trusting Marcus Ashford had already destroyed her, she believed him. Dexter Kane had the weathered face of a man who'd seen too much, done worse, and stopped caring about the difference between legal and effective somewhere around his 10th year in the FBI. He'd left the Bureau under circumstances that were never fully explained, started a private investigation firm that specialized in cases where conventional methods wouldn't work, and built a reputation for getting results that courts couldn't use, but clients desperately needed. Marcus slid a folder across the table. Inside, everything he had on Gerald Hartman. Everything he'd collected over 16 months of careful investigation. "I need more," Marcus said. Hartman bribed city officials. I need the wire transfers, the recorded conversations, proof that will hold up in court. He's running offshore shell corporations to hide assets. I need the bank records, the beneficial ownership documents, everything the IRS would need to prosecute tax evasion. He falsified building inspections. I need the original reports, the payoffs to inspectors, witnesses who'll testify. Kane opened the folder, scanned the contents with the practiced eye of someone who'd built 1,000 cases from less. This is extensive, and some of it would require methods that definitely wouldn't hold up in court, methods that might be illegal if anyone asked too many questions. Then make sure the evidence is obtained correctly, or at least make sure it's untraceable to me. Marcus's voice was steel wrapped in ice. I don't care about the methods. I care about results. Kate Morrison's career is being destroyed because she had the integrity to investigate honestly. I will not let that stand. Your fee? Kane asked. $500,000. 2 weeks. Kane whistled low. That's generous. This about the woman? This is about justice. But Marcus's voice softened slightly when he said it. And Kane, who'd made a career out of reading people, knew exactly what that meant. I'll start tomorrow, Kane said. But Ashford, be careful. Men who do what I do, we recognize our own kind. You're playing a dangerous game. And sometimes when you play dangerous games, you lose more than you intended to risk. I've been playing dangerous games my whole life. This time I'm making sure I win. Marcus's penthouse, later that evening. Colleen Ashford found her brother standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Lake Michigan, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the city lights like they held answers to questions he couldn't articulate. She let herself in with the key he'd given her years ago, the key she only used when she was genuinely worried about him. You look like hell, she said by way of greeting. Thanks, Colonel. Want to tell me why you called at 11 p.m. asking about the Ashford Foundation's medical grant program? Marcus took a drink, didn't turn around. Someone needs heart surgery. $85,000. Insurance covers $40,000. She doesn't qualify for standard assistance. Diane Morrison. Colleen went very still. Morrison, as in Kate Morrison, the journalist who's been investigating you. The journalist who's been helping me expose Hartman. The journalist who just lost her job because of it. Marcus's voice was tight. Her mother needs surgery. Can't get it without payment guarantee. If I don't do something, Diane Morrison dies because her daughter made the mistake of trusting me. Marcus, Colleen's voice went soft with concern. The tone she used when she was worried about him in ways that went beyond business or legal exposure. What's going on with you? She called me out the first night we met, told me I was just another entitled billionaire who'd never worked for anything real. And instead of being angry, I was fascinated. Nobody talks to me like that, Colonel. Nobody challenges me. Nobody looks at me and sees just a man instead of a bank account. He finally turned to face his sister. I've watched her work, seen the way she investigates, thorough, relentless, absolutely committed to finding the truth even when the truth isn't what she expected. She's brilliant and principled and completely fearless. And because she trusted me enough to investigate honestly, her career is burning down and her mother might die. How am I supposed to be okay with that? Colleen walked to the bar, poured herself wine with the deliberate movements of someone buying time to think. The foundation can approve the grant. Medical assistance for working-class families is exactly what we fund. But Marcus, you sound different. Different how? Like someone who actually cares about something beyond family and business. She touched his shoulder gently. I haven't heard you talk about someone like this since... Actually, I've never heard you talk about someone like this. Be careful, big brother. You're vulnerable in ways you haven't been since Mom died. After Colleen left, Marcus stood at the window for another hour, watching the city and thinking about Kate Morrison's green eyes when she'd collapsed against him, finally letting her armor crack. He'd survived everything the world had thrown at him, built an empire, weathered his father's death and his mother's cancer, fought off competitors and critics, and every attempt to destroy what he'd built. But this felt different. This felt like if he failed Kate, he'd lose something that actually mattered more than business or money or pride. He'd lose the person who'd made him remember why he'd wanted to build things in the first place. Thomas Brennan looked exactly like a man who'd been fired for refusing to lie. Bitter, half drunk by mid-afternoon, nursing grievances in a whiskey glass with equal attention. Kate slid into the booth across from him without asking permission, without introduction, just sat down and met his bloodshot eyes with her journalist stare that said she knew everything and was giving him one chance to tell his side. "Mr. Brennan, can I buy you a drink?" He squinted at her through the fog of alcohol and resentment. "Who are you?" "Someone Gerald Hartman is trying to destroy. Thought we might have common interests." That got his attention. Brennan straightened slightly, some of the fog clearing from his eyes like sunlight burning through morning mist. Kate spent the next 90 minutes listening to him talk, carefully recording everything on her phone, asking the right questions at the right times, drawing out the story of a man who tried to do the right thing and been destroyed for it. Thomas Brennan had been VP of construction at Hartman Properties for 8 years. Good salary, good benefits, respect from the crews, everything a career construction manager could want. Until the West Side Development Project, when Gerald Hartman had ordered him to sign off on inspection reports for buildings that didn't meet code. Half the buildings had structural problems, Brennan said, his voice thick with alcohol and old anger. Improper load-bearing supports, electrical systems that were fire hazards waiting to happen, plumbing that would fail within 5 years. I told Hartman we needed to fix it, do the work right. He said it would cost too much, put us over budget. Brennan's hands shook as he reached for his glass. I refused to sign the reports, told him I wouldn't put my name on buildings that could kill people. So he fired me, accused me of embezzlement, said I'd been stealing from the company, had fake documents to prove it, destroyed my reputation, made sure I'd never work construction management in Chicago again. "You have proof?" Kate asked quietly. Brennan pulled a USB drive from his jacket pocket, the move of a man who'd been carrying evidence for so long it had become part of him, like a talisman or a weapon waiting to be used. Everything, the original inspection reports showing the violations, the falsified reports Hartman filed with the city, records of the payoffs he made to inspectors to sign off anyway. Offshore bank transfers. He's been hiding money in Delaware and Nevada shell corporations for years, dodging taxes, bribing officials. I kept copies of all of it. Kate's pulse quickened. This was it. This was the evidence she needed to destroy Hartman and save her career, and prove that trusting Marcus Ashford hadn't been the worst mistake of her life. "Why didn't you go to the FBI?" Brennan laughed, bitter and broken. "I tried, filed a formal complaint, provided documentation. You know what happened? My complaint disappeared into a bureaucratic black hole. 3 weeks later, FBI agent calls me, says they reviewed my allegations, found no basis for prosecution. I ask for details. They tell me it's confidential." He leaned forward, eyes suddenly clear and fierce. "Hartman owns people, Ms. Morrison. City officials, building inspectors, maybe even federal agents. I don't know how deep his corruption goes, but I know a direct complaint got buried." A journalist, though? A journalist with a reputation for taking down corporations? You might actually make it stick. You might make him pay. He pushed the USB drive across the table. Kate stared at it like it was both salvation and damnation. "Why give this to me? Why now?" "Because Gerald Hartman destroyed my life for trying to do the right thing, ruined my career, my reputation, my marriage. My wife left me 6 months after I got fired, said she couldn't handle being married to someone everyone thought was a thief. I lost everything because I wouldn't sign papers that could get people killed." Brennan's voice cracked. "I want to watch him burn. I want to see him in handcuffs. I want everyone to know what he really is. And you, Miss Morrison? You're the only person I've met who might actually be able to make that happen. Kate used the access code Marcus had given her weeks ago, the code she still had despite blocking his number, despite everything. She found him exactly where she expected, working under harsh industrial lights, surrounded by blueprints and building plans, looking like a man who'd forgotten that humans needed sleep. He looked up when she entered. Exhaustion lined his face, but his eyes went warm when he saw her. Kate, I didn't expect. You blocked my number. She crossed the space between them and set the USB drive on his desk with a deliberate click. Hartman's crimes, all of them, offshore accounts, bribery, falsified inspections, from his former VP of construction, who kept copies of everything before Hartman destroyed him. Marcus stared at the drive like it was the Holy Grail. How did you? I'm a journalist. It's what I do. Kate couldn't quite keep the pride from her voice. I investigate. I find sources. I get the truth. That's my job, and I'm very good at it. Marcus stood, moved closer. Too close. Close enough that Kate could see the gold flecks in his amber eyes, could smell his cologne mixed with coffee and exhaustion. You're incredible, he said, voice rough with something that might have been admiration or might have been something more complicated. I also need to tell you something. Kate took a breath. Your sister called me this morning, said the Ashford Foundation approved my mother's surgery medical grant for working-class families. Marcus, I told you I didn't want charity. It's not charity. It's not from me personally. It's from the foundation. Marcus's voice was gentle. Legitimate grant program. Your mother qualified on merit, single parent, working class background, medical need without adequate insurance coverage. 43 other families received grants this quarter. Colleen prioritized the review process, but the approval was based on eligibility, not favoritism. Kate felt something tight in her chest, loosen slightly. Not a gift, not pity, just help from a system designed to help people like her mother. Thank you, she whispered, for asking Colleen to review it, for giving my mother a chance. Marcus reached up, cupped her face with his hand, thumb brushing her cheekbone in a gesture so gentle it made her heart hurt. I couldn't watch you suffer knowing I had the power to help. That's not charity. That's caring about someone enough to use whatever resources you have to protect them. The air between them charged with electricity. They were inches apart, and Kate could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could see the intensity in his eyes. This is a bad idea, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I know. We have to work together. Stay professional. Can't let emotions compromise the investigation. I know. And I still don't completely trust you. I don't trust easily. I don't let people in. I don't. Marcus silenced her with a kiss that tasted like coffee and desperation and weeks of tension finally breaking. Kate's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. Marcus's arms wrapped around her like he could hold her together through sheer force of will. 10 seconds, maybe 15. Time stopped meaning anything. When Kate finally pulled away, both of them were breathing hard, foreheads touching, the space between them crackling with everything they weren't saying. No, Kate said, though her body was screaming the opposite. We can't. Not yet. Not until this is done. Not until Hartman is destroyed and my name is cleared and I can think straight instead of feeling like my entire world is on fire. Marcus's hands were still on her waist, his breath warm against her lips. You're right. After Hartman falls, after you're cleared, after we prove that everything we built together is real, then we figure out what this is. Deal. They stood there, neither willing to move first, both knowing they should, but unable to make themselves care. Kate, Marcus's voice was rough. Thank you for trusting me, for believing in tungsten, for being willing to risk everything to expose the truth. Thank you for being worth the risk. Marcus, Kate, Brendan, Dexter Kane, and Colleen sat around the massive mahogany table that had witnessed 1,000 business deals and corporate decisions. But this wasn't business as usual. This was war. The walls were covered with evidence, photographs pinned to corkboards, documents spread across every surface, red string connecting dots in a pattern that told the story of Gerald Hartman's empire of corruption. It looked like the conspiracy theory wall from a crime thriller, except every piece of evidence was real, documented, traceable. Dexter Kane presented first, standing at the head of the table like a prosecutor laying out a case for the jury. Hartman bribed 7 city officials over 5 years, he said, pointing to wire transfer records projected on the screen. Total, $2.3 million. I have the wire transfers, routing numbers, Shell Corporation documentation. More importantly, I have recordings of 3 conversations where Hartman explicitly discusses the bribes. He was careful, used coded language, but combined with the financial records, it's clear enough for prosecution. He clicked to the next slide. 2 of the officials have agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. They're terrified of Hartman, but more terrified of federal prison. I have their signed statements. Brendan added his piece, pulling up financial spreadsheets on his laptop. If Shell corporations in Delaware and Nevada, 40 million in hidden assets, minimum. Probably more that we haven't found yet. Tax evasion going back at least a decade. The IRS would have a field day with this. Kate laid out the contents of Brennan's USB drive, spreading documents across the table like playing cards in a winning hand. Falsified inspection reports. Thomas Brennan kept the original reports showing building code violations, structural problems, electrical hazards, plumbing that doesn't meet standards. Then here are the reports Hartman actually filed with the city, all showing perfect compliance. 800 families are currently living in buildings that could collapse or catch fire because Hartman cut corners to maximize profit. She pulled up photographs on her tablet. I interviewed 12 families who were displaced by Hartman's West Side development. All of them tell the same story, promised affordable housing as part of the deal. Then those units were never built. Hartman got permits by lying, built luxury condos, paid a small fine, and walked away with $300 million in profit. Colleen looked pale, her normally composed features tight with barely controlled anger. If we expose this publicly, it triggers federal investigation, FBI, IRS, probably housing and urban development. Hartman could be looking at 20 years in federal prison. That's the point, Marcus said. He stood at the head of the table, every inch the CEO who'd built a $4 billion empire through intelligence and strategic thinking. We have everything. The question is, how do we deploy it for maximum impact? Kate leaned forward. I publish. Front page, Chicago Tribune. With this much evidence, Mitchell will have to lift my suspension. This is Pulitzer-level investigative journalism. He can't refuse to run it. You're still under ethics investigation, Brendan pointed out, ever the practical CFO thinking 3 moves ahead. The journalism board could rule against you before you publish, which would undermine credibility, which gets dismissed the moment Hartman is exposed, Kate countered. The Chicago Citizens for Journalism Integrity organization that filed the complaint? I traced it back, registered 3 weeks before the complaint was filed. President is Thomas Chen, former Hartman Properties employee who was fired for refusing to participate in bid rigging. Hartman clearly created a fake organization specifically to attack my credibility. She pulled up the incorporation documents. When I published the full investigation showing Hartman's pattern of destroying whistleblowers and journalists who investigate him, the ethics complaint becomes evidence of his corruption, not evidence of mine. Marcus's expression was troubled, the strategic thinker seeing problems the others hadn't considered yet. Hartman will fight back. Defamation suits, injunctions to block publication, appeals to his political connections. He has 3 congressmen who owe him favors. He could tie this up in court for years. Let him try, Colleen said quietly, and everyone turned to look at her. The youngest person in the room, the one who usually deferred to her older brother, suddenly had steel in her voice. Federal criminal charges trump civil defamation suits. Once the FBI opens an investigation based on Kate's reporting, Hartman can sue all he wants. He'll be too busy defending himself from prosecutors to worry about silencing journalists. Everyone looked at Kate. Marcus walked to where she sat and leaned down, hands on the table, until they were eye level. Once you publish, there's no going back. Hartman will come at you with everything he has: legal threats, character assassination, possibly physical intimidation. He's desperate and cornered, which makes him dangerous. Are you absolutely certain you're ready for that? Kate met his eyes. Will you protect me? With my life. She nodded. Then let's bury him. Kate had been invited for final strategy review. In reality, Marcus had ordered Thai food from her favorite place. How did he know it was her favorite? Opened a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and they'd spent the first hour not talking about Hartman at all. His apartment continued to surprise her. Books with cracked spines and dog-eared pages, actually read, not just displayed. Vinyl records organized by decade, with clear favorites based on wear patterns. Photos of Colleen's kids on every surface. Some professional, but most just candid snapshots of birthday parties and school plays. This isn't what I imagined, Kate said, curling up on the leather couch with her wine, shoes kicked off, more relaxed than she'd been in weeks. What did you imagine? Marble statues of myself? Gold-plated everything? A Shark Tank? Something like that, she smiled. This feels human, real, like someone actually lives here instead of just using it as a showpiece. The penthouse is for show. Client meetings, business dinners, maintaining the image. Marcus sat beside her, close enough that their knees almost touched. This is home, where I actually spend time when I'm not working, where I can just be. They talked about everything except Hartman. Kate told him about growing up in Detroit, watching the auto industry collapse, her father's decision to pivot to construction work. Marcus told her about Bridgeport, about being 19 and responsible for his mother and sister, about the pressure of building a company while trying to honor his father's memory. A comfortable silence settled between them, the kind that only comes when two people are genuinely comfortable with each other, when words aren't necessary to fill every moment. After this is over, Marcus said carefully, setting down his glass and turning to face her fully, what happens? What do you want to happen? Tribune will reinstate me, probably with a promotion. This story is too big for them to let me walk to a competitor. National syndication, maybe a Pulitzer nomination. Kate paused. Maybe offers from national papers. New York Times, Washington Post. The kind of positions I've been working toward my whole career. And those positions would require moving to New York or D.C. Probably, yeah. Marcus was quiet for a moment. And if I asked you to stay in Chicago? Kate's heart skipped. Why would you ask that? Because the past 3 weeks working with you has been the best part of my days. Because when you smile after finding a piece of evidence, I forget how to breathe. Because watching you work, your intelligence, your integrity, your absolute refusal to compromise your principles, even when it costs you everything, makes me want to be better than I am. He reached over, took her hand. I'm 47 years old, Kate. I've dated. I've had relationships that looked good on paper. Women who fit into my world perfectly, who understood the obligations and expectations that come with being Marcus Ashford's partner. And every single one of those relationships felt hollow. Performance instead of connection. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. Then you walked into my office 6 weeks ago, called me an entitled billionaire to my face, and looked at me like you could see through every defense I'd ever built. And I was fascinated. Not because you're beautiful, though you are. Not because you're successful, though you've earned every bit of that success. But because you see me, the person under the title and the money and the expectations. You see who I actually am, and you challenge me to be better. Kate's eyes were stinging with tears she refused to let fall. Marcus, I'm scared. Of what? That this is just adrenaline, high stakes creating false intimacy, that we're caught up in the intensity of taking down Hartman, and when everything settles, we'll realize this was just circumstance. Just two people thrown together by crisis who mistook partnership for something more. Marcus set down both their wine glasses and cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Or maybe, he said quietly, high stakes forced us to be honest about what we want faster than we would have otherwise. Maybe crisis stripped away all the bullshit and games and careful dating protocols and made us face the truth. That I've fallen in love with you, Kate Morrison. Completely, terrifyingly, in ways I didn't think I was capable of anymore. You can't just say that. I'm terrible with emotions, Marcus continued, his voice raw and honest in ways she'd never heard from him. I've spent 20 years avoiding feelings, building walls, keeping everyone at arm's length except Colleen and Brendan. My relationships have been transactions, pleasant, compatible, but ultimately empty. I thought that's just how I was built, incapable of the kind of connection other people have. He leaned forward until their foreheads touched. But with you, I can't maintain distance. I can't keep walls up. I can't pretend I don't care when every conversation with you is the most interesting thing in my day. When watching you investigate makes me remember why I wanted to build things in the first place. When the thought of you leaving Chicago feels like losing something essential. Kate kissed him then, cutting off whatever he was going to say next. Because if she let him keep talking, she'd fall completely, and there was still so much that could go wrong. The kiss was slower than their first, deeper, full of everything they weren't saying out loud. Promise and fear, and the terrifying possibility that this might actually be real. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Stay, Marcus whispered against her lips. Tonight, not because of the investigation, not because of Hartman, just because I don't want you to leave, because I want to wake up tomorrow with you beside me. Kate nodded, beyond words, beyond rational thought, beyond caring about all the reasons this was complicated. For tonight, this was enough. Kate woke to Marcus already dressed in a suit, phone pressed to his ear, his face carved from granite. The gentleness from last night was gone, replaced by the CEO who'd built an empire through strategic thinking and ruthless efficiency. Turn on the news, he said tightly. Channel 7, now. Kate fumbled for the remote, her journalist instincts kicking in, even as her brain was still foggy from sleep and wine and the warmth of Marcus's bed. The morning news filled the screen. Breaking news. Federal investigators raided Ashford Development headquarters early this morning, following anonymous tips about a massive money laundering operation. CEO Marcus Ashford is now the subject of a federal criminal investigation. The footage showed FBI agents carrying boxes from the Willis Tower, Marcus's building, his company, his life's work being paraded in front of cameras like evidence of crimes he hadn't committed. No, Kate breathed, feeling her stomach drop. No, no, no. Marcus was already on the phone with Brendan, his voice controlled, but she could hear the fury underneath. What the hell happened? Brendan's voice came through the speaker, panicked in ways Kate had never heard from the normally composed CFO. Hartman filed a federal complaint 2 days ago. He submitted falsified documents claiming tungsten is a money laundering front. Fake bank records showing wire transfers from Chinese and Russian investors. Fabricated testimony from supposed witnesses. Everything designed to look like you're cleaning dirty money through affordable housing construction. But we have evidence he did that. Doesn't matter. He struck first, Marcus. He got his complaint filed and triggered a federal investigation before we could publish. Now you're the one under criminal investigation. The optics are terrible. Kate felt the room spinning. Her article, The investigation that was supposed to save her career and destroy Hartman. It was supposed to publish this morning, front page, vindication for both of them. Her phone rang. Mitchell Sterling. Kate, his voice was tired, defeated. About the Hartman piece we were going to run this morning. Mitchell, I know how this looks, but the evidence is solid. We can't run it. Legal says the defamation risk is too high now that Ashford is under federal investigation. Publishing accusations against Hartman while your primary source is being investigated for the same crimes looks like retaliation, not journalism. Mitchell, Hartman framed him. He filed a false complaint to prevent us from exposing his real crimes. You don't know it's false. You believe it's false because Ashford told you it's false. But you're personally involved with him, Kate. Your judgment is compromised. I'm sorry, but the story is killed. It's not running. The line went dead. Kate looked at Marcus, feeling everything they'd built crumbling around them. Tribune won't publish. Without the article, we have no way to expose Hartman publicly. No way to prove you're innocent. Then we leak it to national papers. Washington Post, New York Times, anyone who'll listen. No. Kate's voice was hollow, with the terrible certainty of someone who understood how journalism actually worked. Without Tribune's institutional backing, I look like a scorned girlfriend defending her billionaire boyfriend. Zero credibility. Every word I write will be dismissed as bias, not journalism. Brendan appeared in the doorway, out of breath from running up the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. Emergency board meeting in 2 hours. They're calling for your removal as CEO, Marcus. The board wants you out to protect the company's reputation. Marcus's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Like a general watching his battle plan collapse but refusing to show weakness. How bad? They've frozen company accounts pending the investigation. You can't access corporate funds for legal defense. And Hartman has 3 witnesses ready to testify under oath that they saw you accept cash payments from foreign investors. All fake, all bought, but they'll testify in court. What about Brennan's evidence? Kate asked, grasping for anything. Brendan's face went gray. Car accident last night. Brake failure. Thomas Brennan is dead. Kate made a sound like she'd been physically struck. The room tilted. Marcus's voice went cold as Arctic ice. Hartman murdered him. We can't prove it, Brendan said quietly. Brennan's dead. The USB drive could be claimed as fabricated by Ashford to frame Hartman. Without Brennan to authenticate it, without his testimony, it's just data that a good lawyer will tear apart. They were cornered. Perfectly, completely cornered. Hartman had played them brilliantly, struck first with false federal charges, eliminated their key witness, poisoned public opinion before they could get their story out. Kate stood up, pacing Marcus's bedroom like a caged animal, searching for an escape that didn't exist. There has to be something, some way to... Then she stopped, turned to face Marcus and Brendan. The interview, our first meeting, 6 weeks ago, I recorded it. Her words came faster as the idea formed. Journalist habit. I record everything. Marcus, you explained tungsten to me before there was any federal complaint, before any pressure to create an alibi. You told me about affordable housing, about your vision, about Hartman's history of corruption. All of it unprompted, consistent before you had any reason to lie. Brendan's eyes widened. Prior, consistent statement. In legal terms, if Marcus told the same story before he was under investigation, it suggests he wasn't making up alibis under pressure. It's evidence of truthfulness. But it was off-record, Colleen said, appearing behind Brendan with coffee and the expression of someone who'd been up all night researching legal strategies. Kate, if you release an off-the-record interview, you violate journalism ethics. The board could revoke your credentials permanently. You'd be blacklisted from every major newspaper in the country. Kate met Marcus's eyes across the room. Thomas Brennan died trying to expose Hartman. He lost his career, his marriage, everything he had, because he refused to sign papers that could kill people. and then Hartman murdered him to silence him. Her voice was steel. I will not let him win. I will not let a good man's death be meaningless. I will not stay silent while Hartman destroys everyone who threatens him. Kate, no. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides. I won't let you destroy your career for me. Your credibility is everything. Without it, you can't be a journalist. You can't expose corruption. You can't— This isn't for you, Kate interrupted, her voice fierce. It's for the 200 families counting on tungsten. For my father, who died because companies like Morrison Construction cut corners. For Thomas Brennan, who died trying to do the right thing. For every person Hartman has destroyed. She pulled out her phone, pulled up the recording files she'd kept for 6 weeks. I became a journalist to expose the truth and protect people from corporate corruption. If I stay silent now, if I let Hartman win because I'm afraid of losing my credentials, then what's the point? What good is being a credentialed journalist if I don't use that platform to tell the truth when it matters most? Marcus's voice cracked. If you do this, you lose everything. Your career, your credentials, any chance of working for a major newspaper. Kate, I can't let you sacrifice that for me. It's not your choice. She met his eyes. This is me choosing truth over career. This is me deciding that some things matter more than credentials and institutional approval. This is me being the journalist I promised my father I'd be. Kate uploaded the recording to her personal blog, to Twitter, to every social media platform she had. She wrote a statement to accompany it. The truth about Marcus Ashford, Gerald Hartman, and why I'm ending my career to tell it. 6 weeks ago, I interviewed Marcus Ashford, believing he was a corrupt developer exploiting poor communities. This recording proves he explained tungsten, affordable housing for working families, before any federal investigation, before any pressure to create alibis. His story has been consistent, detailed, and verifiable from the beginning. Gerald Hartman filed false federal charges to prevent this truth from emerging. He murdered Thomas Brennan to silence a witness. He is currently bribing officials and destroying evidence. I am releasing this off-record interview knowing it will end my journalism career. But some truths matter more than careers. Some fights are worth losing everything. My name is Kate Morrison. My credentials will be revoked for this. And I don't care. The truth matters more. She hit publish. Within 30 minutes, 100,000 views. Within an hour, 500,000. By noon, every major news network was covering the story. Kate Morrison had just committed professional suicide to save the man she loved. The preliminary hearing looked like every courtroom drama Kate had ever covered, except this time she wasn't sitting in the press gallery with her notebook and recorder. This time she sat at the defendant's table beside Marcus. No press credentials, no professional distance, just her hand in his, and both of them facing the possibility that everything they'd built could still crumble. The courtroom was packed. Media filled every available seat. Spectators lined the walls. This was the story everyone wanted to see. The billionaire developer, the journalist who'd sacrificed her career. The allegations of corruption so deep they threatened to shake Chicago's entire development industry. Gerald Hartman sat across the aisle with his legal team, expensive suits and practiced expressions of wounded innocence. He looked every inch the successful businessman being persecuted by a jealous competitor and a biased journalist. Federal prosecutor Lisa Monroe called Kate to the stand first. Ms. Morrison, Monroe's voice was professional, neutral, designed to extract facts without bias. You released an off-the-record interview with Marcus Ashford. Explain why. Kate's voice was steady as bedrock. Because Thomas Brennan died before he could testify about Gerald Hartman's crimes. Because 800 families are living in structurally unsafe buildings. Because Hartman has been bribing officials, falsifying documents, and destroying anyone who threatens to expose him. Hartman's lawyer, a silver-haired man named Pearson, who charged $1,000 an hour, shot to his feet. Objection! Inflammatory allegations without Sustained, Judge Patricia Chen said, her voice cutting through the courtroom like a scalpel. Ms. Morrison, stick to answering the question asked. Save your accusations for when they're supported by evidence. Kate took a breath, reined in her anger. I released the recording because it proves Marcus Ashford's story about tungsten has been consistent from the beginning. 3 weeks before any federal complaint was filed, before he had any reason to create alibis or manufacture stories, he explained the project to me in detail. Affordable housing, community development, everything he's saying now, he said then. That's not the behavior of someone creating cover stories. That's the behavior of someone telling the truth. Monroe pulled up the metadata on the recording. And this audio is authentic? Unedited? Yes, independent forensics teams have examined it. The file shows no signs of tampering. The timestamp proves it was created 6 weeks ago, long before Hartman's federal complaint. Hartman's lawyer tried again. But you're personally involved with Mr. Ashford, living with him, in a romantic relationship that compromises your objectivity. Kate looked directly at the jury when she answered, Yes, I love him, which is exactly why releasing that recording cost me everything. If I were biased in his favor, trying to protect him through dishonest journalism, I would have buried that recording, kept it secret, protected my career and my reputation. Her voice grew stronger. Instead, I ended my career to release it. I sacrificed 15 years of work, my credibility, my professional reputation, all to tell a truth that I knew would destroy me professionally. That's not bias, that's integrity. That's choosing truth over personal interest, even when the cost is devastating. Several jurors were nodding. Kate saw it, felt a flicker of hope. Marcus's testimony was calm, measured, the voice of a man who testified before and knew how to handle pressure. He explained tungsten, the permits being blocked, the need for proof of concept before going public. Monroe pulled up financial records. The federal complaint against you alleges money laundering through tungsten. What do you say to that? I say examine every account, every wire transfer, every transaction. Marcus's voice was steel-wrapped intensity. The FBI has had access to my complete financial records for a week. They've found zero evidence of money laundering because there isn't any. Every dollar into tungsten came from legitimate business profits, properly taxed, completely documented. Monroe held up documents. These reports filed with the federal complaint, claiming offshore wire transfers and foreign investors. Our forensics team analyzed them. They're fabrications, sophisticated forgeries, but fabrications nonetheless. The IP addresses from which they were uploaded trace back to computers at Hartman Properties. The courtroom erupted. Judge Chen's gavel cracked like thunder. Order! I will have order in this courtroom. Hartman stood, his face red. This is absurd. This is a setup orchestrated by Ashford to... Mr. Hartman, sit down, Judge Chen said, her voice ice, or I will hold you in contempt. But the killing blow came from Brendan Sullivan's testimony. Brendan stood at the witness stand, normally composed but now visibly emotional, hands shaking slightly as he held the recording that would destroy Hartman. 6 months ago, Hartman approached me privately, offered me $5 million to provide false testimony against Marcus. He wanted me to claim I had concerns about tungsten, that I'd seen suspicious transactions, that I believed Marcus was laundering money. The courtroom went deadly silent. I declined, but I recorded the conversation. Judge Chen nodded. Hartman's voice filled the courtroom, clear and damning. Ashford's too clean, Sullivan. That's the problem. We need to make him look dirty. You're the CFO. People will believe you if you raise concerns. $5 million for your testimony. 7 if you can provide documents that suggest financial irregularities. We can fabricate those together, make them look authentic. Brendan's voice on the recording. You're asking me to commit perjury and fraud. Hartman's laugh. I'm asking you to be smart. Ashford goes down, his company gets broken up, we acquire the best parts. You become CFO of the combined operation. Think of it as a career advancement opportunity. Everyone wins except Marcus, and frankly, he's been a thorn in my side long enough. The jury looked horrified. FBI Special Agent Rodriguez delivered the final evidence. We investigated Ashford development thoroughly. Zero evidence of money laundering. Zero evidence of illegal activity. Mr. Ashford's company is one of the cleanest we've ever audited. He pulled up bank records, wire transfers. However, we found that Gerald Hartman maintains extensive offshore shell corporations in Delaware and Nevada. $43 million in hidden assets. Wire transfers that correspond with city council votes on development permits. A pattern of bribes disguised as consulting fees. Rodriguez's expression hardened. We also found evidence of witness intimidation, retaliation against former employees, and suspicious circumstances around Thomas Brennan's death. Mr. Brennan's brake lines were cleanly cut. This wasn't mechanical failure, it was sabotage. We recovered fingerprints from the brake assembly. They belonged to Vincent Russo, an employee of Hartman Properties who disappeared the day after Brennan's death. We've issued a warrant for Mr. Russo's arrest, and we're investigating whether Hartman ordered the killing. Hartman had gone white as paper, sweat beading on his forehead. Agent Rodriguez, based on your investigation, what is your recommendation to this court? Drop all charges against Marcus Ashford. There's no probable cause to proceed. However, we recommend immediate arrest of Gerald Hartman for federal tax evasion, bribery of public officials, wire fraud, falsification of federal documents, and conspiracy to commit murder. Judge Chen looked at Hartman with the expression of someone who'd seen enough. Mr. Hartman, stand. Hartman tried one last desperate play. This is a setup. Ashford has orchestrated all of this. Enough. Judge Chen's voice cracked like a whip. I've heard enough lies from you, Mr. Hartman. Preliminary hearing finds no probable cause to proceed against Marcus Ashford. All charges are dismissed with prejudice. Her gavel fell. However, Gerald Hartman, you are hereby arrested for federal tax evasion, bribery, wire fraud, falsification of documents submitted to federal investigators, and conspiracy to commit murder. Bailiff, take him into custody. 2 U.S. Marshals moved forward. Hartman actually tried to run, jumped from his seat, and bolted for the exit, like he could somehow escape federal agents in a courthouse. They caught him in 3 steps, wrestled him to the ground, cuffed him while he screamed about conspiracies and frame-ups. The man who'd terrorized Chicago's real estate industry for over a decade, who'd displaced 800 families, who'd murdered a whistleblower, was dragged from the courtroom in handcuffs while cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. Marcus didn't celebrate, didn't smile, just sat there watching justice finally catch up to a man who'd thought himself untouchable. Kate reached over and took his hand. It was over. The courthouse steps were a mass of reporters, cameras, microphones. Marcus held Kate's hand tightly as they navigated through the chaos. Mr. Ashford, how does it feel to be cleared? Marcus stopped, faced the cameras. This isn't about me. Thomas Brennan died seeking justice for the families harmed by Gerald Hartman's corruption. 800 people lost their homes because Hartman prioritized profit over people. Today is about them, about making sure Hartman faces consequences for the harm he's caused, about proving that even powerful people can be held accountable if enough people refuse to stay silent. Ms. Morrison, the Journalism Ethics Board revoked your credentials this morning. What about your career? Kate's smile was sad but genuine. I violated journalism ethics by releasing an off-the-record interview. The board was right to revoke my credentials, but I'd make the same choice again because some truths matter more than careers. Some fights are worth losing everything for. Do you regret it? Kate looked at Marcus, and something in her expression made every camera flash. Not for 1 second. Finally alone. Finally quiet. Finally over. Kate stood at the windows overlooking Lake Michigan, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of orange and gold. Marcus came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Tungsten opens next month. 200 families move in. We prove the model works, that affordable housing can be profitable and sustainable. In my career," there was no bitterness in her voice, just acceptance. Marcus turned her to face him. "I have a proposal. Tungsten needs a communications director, someone who understands communities, who has integrity, who knows how to tell stories that matter. Someone who can document everything, the successes, the failures, the lessons learned, and publish case studies to help other developers replicate the model." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Salary, $150,000. Full benefits, equity stake in the project. You'd have complete editorial independence. If Tungsten fails, you report it honestly. No sugarcoating. Your job is to tell the truth, whether that truth makes me look good or not." Kate blinked. That's not traditional journalism. "No, it's impact journalism, using your skills to change systems instead of just exposing problems. You spent your career tearing down corrupt companies. This is your chance to build something better, to prove that development doesn't have to exploit people to be successful." Kate thought about it. "I need complete autonomy. I write what I see, report what happens, with no interference from you or anyone else. I wouldn't want it any other way. And our relationship doesn't affect the work. If I find problems with Tungsten, I report them even if it makes you look bad." Marcus smiled. "We already proved we can separate business from personal. Badly, with a lot of complications, but we proved it's possible." "Then yes, I'll do it." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "But Marcus, thank you for fighting for me, for Tungsten, for believing that we could actually change something." He kissed her forehead. "You saved me first, saved my project, my reputation, possibly my freedom. I'm just trying to return the favor." Kate stood in an emerald dress that Marcus had insisted on buying her. They'd become fixtures at these events over the past year. The billionaire and the former journalist, the unlikely partnership that had changed Chicago's development landscape. Colleen took the stage. "Tonight we honor two people who proved that profit and purpose can coexist, who demonstrated that business success doesn't require exploiting communities, who risked everything to expose corruption and build something better. Marcus Ashford and Kate Morrison, please join me on stage." They walked up together, Kate's heels clicking on the polished floor, Marcus's hand warm against her back. Marcus took the microphone first. "Last year, I almost lost everything: my company, my reputation, my freedom. Kate Morrison saved me, not because she was my girlfriend or because she had anything to gain. She sacrificed her career to tell the truth. She gave up 15 years of building credibility, destroyed her professional reputation, faced the possibility of never working in journalism again, all to expose corruption and protect families who needed affordable housing." His voice softened. "She taught me that the greatest courage isn't facing physical danger. It's choosing principle over self-interest. It's doing the right thing when the cost is devastating. She also taught me that success means nothing if you're alone. That partnership, real partnership, built on respect and shared purpose, is worth more than any business empire. That love isn't weakness. It's the strength to be vulnerable with someone who sees all your flaws and chooses you anyway." He turned to face her fully, and Kate's breath caught. "Kate Morrison, you challenge me every day to be better than I am. You call me out when I'm wrong. You celebrate with me when we succeed. You work beside me as an equal partner, never in my shadow. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me remember why I wanted to build things in the first place." Marcus dropped to one knee. The ballroom went silent. 500 people holding their breath. He pulled out a ring, platinum band with a single diamond, elegant and simple and perfect. I'm 48 years old. I spent most of my life believing I wasn't built for this kind of connection, that I was too focused on work, too damaged from watching my parents die, too comfortable with solitude. Then you walked into my office and called me an entitled billionaire, and I realized I'd been waiting for someone brave enough to see past the money to the person underneath. His voice cracked slightly. Will you marry me? Will you build this life with me? Not as my trophy or my subordinate or my charity project, but as my partner, my equal, the person who makes me want to be worthy of you every single day. Kate was crying now, didn't care who saw. This is very public. You told me I needed to learn to share my life instead of keeping everything private. I'm sharing. Everyone in this room gets to witness me asking the most important question I've ever asked. Then yes, Kate dropped to her knees too, meeting him at eye level because that's who they were. Partners, equals, neither one above the other. Yes, 1,000 times yes. I'll marry you and challenge you and build with you and love you for as long as you'll have me. Marcus slid the ring on her finger, perfect fit, and kissed her while 500 people applauded and cameras flashed. Rachel was crying in the front row, shouting, "About damn time, you two!" Everyone laughed. Marcus helped Kate stand, kept her hand in his as they faced the crowd. "I love her," he said simply, "and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve her." Kate grabbed the microphone. "And I love him. Even though he works too much and thinks architecture documentaries count as entertainment and still can't cook pasta without creating disasters. But he's kind and brilliant and genuinely trying to make the world better instead of just making money. He saw me, really saw me, not the journalist or the daughter of a construction worker or any role I've played. He saw Kate, flaws and all, and loved what he saw. That's rarer than anyone knows." They kissed again, and the ballroom erupted. Tungsten grand opening, 200 families moving in, Beth Sullivan crying with joy, children's laughter echoing through hallways designed for exactly this. Hartman's sentencing, 15 years federal prison, 60 million in fines and restitution. Diane Morrison's full recovery. Walking her daughter down the aisle. Kate's book launch. Building community. How one project challenged everything we thought about affordable housing. Publishers fighting over rights. The Pulitzer Committee creating a new category for impact journalism. Kate Morrison's tungsten documentation winning the inaugural award. Marcus and Kate's wedding at Tungsten's rooftop garden. 75 people who mattered. Judge Patricia Chen officiating. Their vows, partnership, respect, building together. The reception, dancing under string lights, the city glowing below. 1 year after the wedding, Kate entering Marcus's office with an envelope. The Pulitzer Committee created the new category, Impact Journalism, for investigative work that creates systemic change, not just exposing problems. And I won for the Tungsten Documentation Series. Marcus, I won a Pulitzer. After having my credentials revoked, after ending my career. Marcus swept her into his arms, spinning her around. "We did it," Kate whispered. "We actually changed something. Tungsten Phase 2 opens next month. 3 other cities are adopting the model. The book comes out in 6 weeks, and now this." "We did this together," she said. "I exposed Hartman's corruption. You built the alternative. That's partnership." Marcus pulled up something on his computer. Speaking of partnership, Tungsten Phase 3 was approved this morning. 800 units across 3 cities. 2,000 families housed. They stood overlooking Chicago, watching lights come on in windows across the South Side, where families were settling in for the evening. Real families in real homes, built by someone who cared about them as people instead of profit margins. "I love you," Marcus said simply. "I love you too. Now come on, we have a book launch to plan, a Pulitzer to celebrate, and phase 3 to build. We can't rest just because we changed the world once. Once? We're just getting started. They left the office hand in hand, partners in every sense, ready to build the next project, the next dream, the next proof that doing the right thing was possible, even in industries built on exploitation. Behind them, the city glowed with possibility. People ask if I regret ending my journalism career. The truth? I found something better. Not just love, though Marcus is the best thing that ever happened to me, but purpose. Traditional journalism exposed problems. Impact journalism solves them. Together we built more than buildings. We built proof. Proof that profit and compassion can coexist. Proof that business success doesn't require exploitation. Proof that change is possible when people refuse to accept that this is just how things are done. And proof that sometimes the greatest story isn't the one you report, it's the one you live. Marcus and Kate walk out together, laughing, his arm around her shoulders, her hand in his back pocket. Camera pulls back, showing tungsten buildings glowing in evening light. Families visible through windows, cooking dinner, helping with homework, living lives with dignity.